Hey guys, Jester Borris with I Want to Be a GM here, and welcome back to D&D Through the Ages, Part 4, The Wizard. This section is going to cover the basic set, the 5-box set. And so with me today on my right,
This is Troy, the Planescape guy.
to the left.
Gwydion. Is that my voice? Is that my voice?
You should lay off the helium.
Oh, well.
All right, so
All right, Gwydion the long-winded here. Hit it.
crazy man. So again, basic set. We just got done covering the white box. And so this took those rules, sort of adjusted them. We've got some upgrades, and we're going to jump right into it. Magic user, Troy, how many hit
Basic
points?
edition. Yeah, we get a boost, don't we? We you know,
Do we
from,
get-
from D4. What do we
D4?
have? What do we have?
A boost from D4.
Yeah, yeah.
What the hell are you book are you guys reading?
Well, we're just wishful thinking.
Yeah.
Wishful thinking.
Power of positive thinking, yeah.
Still gets you killed.
No.
Yeah, we get a D4.
Yeah, D4
And
stuff. So,
the basic red box edition fleshed out characters from levels 1 to 3.
yeah, red cover.
Yeah.
But we did also see a breakdown for players and dungeon masters books. So a little bit of division of the rules. Troy's got the player's book there in front of him. But
Shall I read?
please do.
Magic users greatly fear damage.
There didn't much.
It's right there in the book.
It was right there in the last book. So,
Magic users greatly fear damage. All other character classes can use armor of some kind, but magic users can only wear robes and normal clothes.
And run.
Thus, they are easily hit.
right.
In addition, they have very few hit points. Magic users start as the weakest characters, but can become the most powerful. Their magic spells can be used for many things, from simple like opening doors and locks, to impressive and dangerous magical attacks, such as Fireball.
Fireball! All right.
They still have 1 die 4. It's used to determine the magic user hit points. 1 to 4 plus Constitution,
Hey, we got the
Yes.
bonus. All right.
Started up in basic.
and 1 die 4 more hit points plus bonuses with each level experience.
So now we got level-based bonus, too.
Level-based bonus too. So you could have as many as 6 hit points at first level.
Yeah.
Nice. Hey, before we get moving too far along, I did want to let Beast know, who has joined us in the chat, that we made fun of Gwydion for
Yes.
you during the break.
We did.
Kind of goes on constantly the rest of the week, too, but
Right.
so thanks for that.
I think he's got another $20 for you, but that's something else.
Hey,
Wow.
$20 is
I
$20.
love you guys. I love you so much.
So,
And I can love you like Beast for $20.
Oh, man. I just want to say thanks to everybody who's joined us today.
Yeah.
Keep the comments rolling in. Mr. Producer will be able to take your questions. And again, if there's anything that we've got behind us you want us to crack open and take a look at, just ask and we'll be glad to do it.
So, if I may continue.
Yes, please.
So, armor, a magic user may not wear any armor,
So
may not
yeah.
use a shield.
fully restricted.
Magic user can only use a dagger as a weapon.
And other player characters as a shield.
I had a barbarian named Shield one.
Remember Doorslayer?
There are many spells, yeah. There are many spells for magic users. The power of the spell is described in a way similar to that of other characters, blah, blah, blah. So here we start getting into the way we recognize in later editions how they would, the terminology for spells. They would break things out into the range, the area of effect, that kind of thing. Verbal, semantic, material components would be described, but not listed early.
Sure.
So we're getting into what we recognize more as a player's book and a DM's book.
Now, the
Thank
we
God.
didn't see Schools of Magic yet. That came in later editions.
That's second
Yeah,
edition.
Yeah.
Something I will mention is if you're playing now or intending to play, have all your spellcasters, and you're going to want a copy, list their verbal only spells. You're not going to believe the times that they're bound and not gagged,
Right.
or something's happening and all they can do is get a verbal out. If they have a list of verbal only spells and you have their list, which keeps them honest, then in those situations they're not doing this, to
Right.
find something to do. Have them put down their verbal only spells, and that's just a GM hint from us
Yeah.
guys here. I want to be a GM to help you behind that screen, make things go faster.
Yeah, verbal spells typically have a casting time of instant or less,
Yeah.
Right.
or one round. If you have to break out material components of some kind, then you get into
Yeah.
casting time.
Yeah.
So
And semantic and so on like that. Just not really good if your hands are tied to try the semantic part. But verbal only spells, get that list. The basic rules follow directly in the footsteps of original D&D.
Yeah, even the
in
dagger
here.
and D4
Yeah,
right out of
yeah.
the white box.
Where you had a choice of being human, cleric, dwarf, elf, halfling, magic user, or thief. Mixing races and classes still didn't exist. And the other thing was, you were expected, and I don't think we mentioned this in the other, you were expected to have a spell book.
Mhm.
And your starting spell book containing 2 first-level spells was about 2 feet thick, or 2 feet square, and 2 to 6 inches thick, weighing at least 20 pounds. It would only fit in a backpack or saddlebag, not a sack. And there was a total of about 24 spells available. So, I mean, you see these
Right.
figurines, especially the old hunks of lead from the first D&D.
They taste good.
Yeah, that had these spell books in their hand, and they were massive. It's like, why would he carry
Yeah,
this
like
around?
this giant.
Yeah, or with
yeah.
both. Yeah, but that was the reason why, and they had it strictly specified in the book.
Some of the things that we'll still encounter as a magic user move forward is a percentage chance to even learn the spell based on intelligence. So, you could attempt to take your 2nd level spell slot, fail your percentage roll, and not actually be able to learn that spell.
Yes.
And then there was other things where you had your spells known and then spells per day. And this is where your spell book came in handy, because you would need to spell or prepare your spells for the day. You could cast out of the spell book, but it was like casting off of a scroll, and it would erase the spell from your spell book, which is why scrolls, read, write, identify, those sorts of components to magic were important for spellcasters.
Now, scrolls that were found were a real treasure because they could take those scrolls and write the spell into their wizard's book.
Yes, this
So
was yeah.
if you came across a 6th-level spell and all you had were 4th and below,
Mhm.
it was like, yeah. So it really made a difference there. And any magic user could cast a spell found on a scroll as if it were memorized, regardless of the level of the spell. Later on, in Pathfinder and some of the others, you had 1 of 2 choices. You had the words of the spell, and you had to come up with the material, or you had the material that was cast into the scroll as well, to where the scroll did everything. So one of those raised dead with a 10,000 gold piece minimum diamond, if you didn't have one of those and you had the words, it was useless.
Right, or if you had the glass rod with your scroll of lightning bolt, that was pretty good.
yeah, that was good. If you didn't have
typically,
it,
if it was on a scroll, then the material components are
they were considered to be part of
they
the
were
scroll.
consumed in making the
Yes.
scroll.
Yes.
So you didn't have to have
Yeah.
all the stuff. That's why scrolls are so valuable.
Yeah.
They had all that, and you just had your reading time, which is typically 1 round.
Yeah, and then the rest was required before your daily ritual of selecting and learning spells for that day. It took about an hour for the task. Each spell had a simply a range, duration, effect. Nothing more other than a possible saving throw. But there again, you had to select the spell that you wanted to go out.
Yeah, so
and then you couldn't just look through your book and figure what you wanted.
I have 5 first level spells in my spell book, but I can only cast 2 a day. I can memorize 2 a day based on my intelligence, so I have to select which 2 I'm going to memorize. And that way, in the situation, in the moment, I can go ahead and cast my spell without needing to break open my spell book or find a scroll.
Yeah.
And so that was one of the things that was encountered a lot in the early days. I remember playing Magic User. You could get your spell book. You could basically have every spell listed in the player's handbook, the Arthurcana, whatever it was.
And you got 2.
But you could take 2.
And if you're needing something else at the time that you have these 2 memorized, everybody in the party's like, you're no help.
Why did you take that one?
Why did you take the?
Come on.
Come on.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
Definitely was a bit tricky, and more magic or higher magic games with the greater access to scrolls. That was a huge benefit. Medium to lower magic access scrolls you coveted and tended to use them, just when you needed them. So you see the bigger, like an extra scroll of fireball when I run out of
Mhm.
spell slots, or levitate, paralysis, polymorph. Those bigger sort of utility spells, you want to try to grab a scroll so you can keep those higher end slots free for yourself.
Back in the early days of the dungeon delves, we would get down into an area, and we would either have too much stuff, or we'd get into an area where we needed something else. We would leave the dungeon. We would leave the dungeon, go prepare, get ready, heal up, get our magic user back to his 8 full points.
Yeah.
And which he was 6th level. He had 8 points.
8 hit points.
And get your stuff and get scrolls and so on like that, and then go back down. Because so many times we would get down and we would be out, or we'd only have one, or we would have wrong stuff.
Right. And
it's like you'd have to stop in the middle of the campaign, and somebody's going to have to go back to town and get a shitload of scrolls. So we would leave the dungeon and come back in. And that's another reason why I recommend a dungeon delve just for fun, is people would go from point A to point Z, and a lot of times they do it in an adventure as well. Well, we held topside as an option for going back to. We didn't just go through all the levels of a dungeon. We would take off for a little while.
Yeah, and that could
level up.
So do some interesting things as far as monsters that wander, monsters that come back, and treasure that was or was not there. But definitely, again, we recommend the dungeon crawl play style. Try it. There's some of those dungeon crawl classics that are available out there. I recommend picking up 1 or 2 of those and see how your party likes it.
I've actually found those in a couple bookstores, or I should say game stores, free.
Yeah, either free or like $2.
Because they're like a generic kind of game, very easily to convert to just about anything that you're playing.
Yeah.
I do want to get back real quickly though to, as we're going through the ages, we're following a couple of spells to see how they change through the years. The white box, I just got it out to confirm as I'm reading here. Magic Missile,
which we got in Greyhawk.
You get the glowing. It's an arrow basically. It never misses target. 1d6 +1, and at 5th level, they get more, so that by 6th level they have 3 that they're shooting.
So each casts 3 bolts. Now, is that intended for one target, or does it specify can be separate targets?
They can be separate targets. They never miss, and they can be separate targets. It's up to the magic user.
There you go.
So that's in Greyhawk. It set that stipulation for how many they got and the damage that they do and how many targets they can hit with it. And it's carried forward into the red box, verbatim.
Yeah. And
Dispel Magic. I don't think we had that in the original white box, did we?
Not in the original, but I thought I saw it in the Greyhawk.
I think it's in Greyhawk.
Yeah, I saw it in the Greyhawk split.
I know they have Dispel Magic and Fly, in the basic edition.
Right, a lot of those.
And I know Fly's in there. I just didn't know if Dispel Magic.
By the time this was written, because you got to remember, we're dealing with a lot of overlap in printings. Yeah. So by the time Red Box was put together, modified, and released, some of those other expansions had already come out, but not all of them. So I think Greyhawk was one of the early ones, and then Blackmore was like second or something of that nature.
Eldritch Wizardry, then Godsend, Heroes.
Yeah. So particularly here in the Red Box, before we get to expert rules, a lot of those Greyhawk at least spells made it over. So we're going to see things like...
I need to get a different one to bring out for this. This one, I just realized, this is a first printing.
Ooh, yeah. You better put that away.
It's only money.
Yeah, you're right.
Troy has several copies of these things, but
I do.
They're all, as you can see, in very nice shape. Very nice.
Yeah.
Until I.
Oh no. Yeah. Now it's mine. So anyway.
There goes Gwydion marking things.
At least he stopped peeing on it.
Yeah, really.
So here's another thing that carries forward. Cleric in the Red Box still had 0 spells at first level. Troy, did you see the chart? Are we at 1 or did we get 2 for first level and magic user? Because I think we still get 1.
We still get 1.
Unless there was a bonus for intelligence. We got bonuses for constitution now.
I think there's 1, but I can't find the...
Because that was always the thing, too. You wanted to have reached a certain intelligence threshold to gain the bonus spells per level.
Yeah. I don't know where I know it's in here somewhere.
Well, you're back in spells. Maybe it's up there with the class description.
Give me a second.
Eh.
Magic
Read everything
user.
else.
So what were some of the other things that we could expect to see in the basic Gwydion that you got some notes on over there?
Honestly, there wasn't a lot of changes between when they finally came out with Swords and Spells, when they finally came out with the basic edition. They took the best parts of it and put that into the red box edition.
Yeah. So we're still seeing ninth
So-
level.
Yeah,
As our
we're
top
still
spells.
seeing ninth level spells, still seeing all of those. There's, I think there was a total of 24 new spells that they put in there, and the, like I say again, the aspect of the wizard's book
Yeah.
and being able to work with that was fleshed out there. Rest was required, which they hadn't really talked a lot about before. Still had the basic 3 of the law, neutral, and chaotic. They still hadn't gone to the 9.
Yeah.
And I think that didn't start until AD&D.
Correct.
Which, again, at the same time this was all going on, we had the basic expert, master, and our companion master, or master companion.
Master, it's
Companion master, and
the
immortal.
nomenclature got a little odd.
Yeah.
'Cause-
that was going on at the same time. Over here was going AD&D, AD&D 1, AD&D 2, 2.5, and so like the supplement years.
yeah.
That was going on over there. So this was coming out at the same time. But no, it was fairly straightforward. And then the expert rules came out.
Right.
Um,
Troy's got
the
a
basic was set for characters levels 1 to 3.
yeah.
Expert came out, and that was for characters level 4 to 14.
So that covers 10
Yeah.
10 whole levels.
Yeah.
And the expert book is one book, but it's broken down for players and for dungeon masters. So you'll have, I think the front side of it was players, the back side of it was dungeon masters.
Oh, the
I think-
spells available, there was 24, I think, spells available in the red, not the 125. Was it the 24?
You're adding total. I'm not sure
Total.
what the total is.
20
First level's 12. The same 12.
yeah.
From
Yeah,
Greyhawk.
second, third, how far up to go?
So
Does go to the 6th level?
yeah, in the
6.
Okay.
first part. So
Yeah.
Same 12 in first edition.
right.
Okay. And then in the expert, had the 1st through 6th level spells, and some of them were now reversible.
Yes, that was one of the
That
things.
was the changes in expert that I thought
That
was
was a big.
awesome.
Yeah.
Troy, as we're
Yeah.
as we're tracking the spells, we talked about magic missile. We can talk a little bit about fireball.
Yeah.
So we saw the 1d6 damage. That's still 1d6 damage per level of the caster. Fifth level to be a third level, or to have access to third level spells. So we're starting at 5d6 with a radius of, I think it was 60.
It's a radius of 20.
Radius of 20.
1d6. 1d6 per level of the caster.
Mhm.
Of course, you have to be 5th level in order to cast
Right.
it at all. But there are no limitations to that.
Right, so there's no cap on the damage possible.
Right. No cap.
Right,
10th level, you're casting 10 die 6. 20th level, 20 die 6.
right. We
And
see that.
100th level, you're leveling castles.
Kabow! Yes.
Well, they cap it at 10d6 second edition where
Yeah.
they bring that out.
Yeah.
So lightning bolt follows the same rules as far as damage goes. No radius, of course, single target.
Now, the interesting thing about Fireball is it had a range limit of like 24 inches. And what
Yeah.
occurred is, if you think of a little pebble, you would send it out,
And then it would,
and it would come back towards you because it had a range limit. So a range limit of 24 inches meant you could cast it out to 24, and then it would come back. The 6 inches
The blast.
of
Yeah.
the blast would come back, and anything within that area would get toasted. So if you sent a lightning bolt out just 4 inches away from you, guess who's in the line of fire? You and anybody behind you. So that way, a person could not cast it at the 24 inches and have it go beyond its spell range limit. So they just made the spell to where it went out and came back at the caster.
they probably got tired of being blown up in dungeons.
Could have been.
I don't care how big the room is.
I cast lightning bolt. Ding, ding, ding,
Yeah.
ding, 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 ding.
And I do remember that bouncing off of hard surfaces,
Yes.
or around corners, some
Yes.
kind of interesting lightning bolt things going on in
Just real
dungeons.
quick, I'm going to look at this and some of the other ones too.
Yeah.
Mr. Lightning Bolt over there. 1 die 6 per damage per level of the caster.
Mhm.
No cap. Each victim Make a save versus spells
Even you.
for half damage. If the lightning bolt strikes a solid surface such as a wall, it will, not maybe,
Yeah.
it will bounce back towards the caster until the total length is 60 foot. So if you're shooting at something less than 60 feet away, you better duck.
So it went beyond the 24, or they changed from the 24 inches of the original.
For lightning,
Yeah.
it's 180.
Yeah, and so
For
now,
fire, it's
now it's
240.
180
Yeah.
and 240. So
Yeah.
so they changed some of those a little bit.
Yeah, so I remember that.
Safety first, boys and girls.
I just remember conversations where we've got mage players talking with the game master, like, so if I like hit it at an angle, kind of like zigzag it,
You bounce it up
like,
there.
Can I carom it off that water tower and part its head right down?
yeah,
the middle?
and he's just like, just roll for damage. Will you leave me alone?
Yeah.
Like either
Not
kill the
gonna do
orc
that.
or not.
Can I make it round the corner somehow?
Well, it says it goes back to the caster.
Well,
Yes.
the idea is that if you shoot and it hits a flat, hard surface, it goes ping. So,
Which recognizes the effect that it does ricochet.
exactly.
So
And
that's where they're coming up with all is trying to justify the DMs.
Yeah, like,
I want
what
to
if I
bounce
hit
it off
it
that wall into the room. No, you're not RoboCop. You can't.
Yeah.
It doesn't work that way.
They wanted it. I wanted it to work that way.
Everybody wants to work that way.
So,
That's why you cast chain lightning.
That's right.
Which is an overgrown shotgun. But
yeah, but Mr. Producer's right about that. So,
Expert rules stated that the Constitution bonuses ended at 9th level for the magic user,
Mm.
so you only got con bonus up to 9th level.
up to 9th level, and that was it. After that, it was just your dice roll.
We can't have these guys surviving.
That's right. Well,
They'll never make any
saving
new
throw
characters.
tables. Saving throw tables gave magic user stats up to level 15, and elf to level 10 because they really didn't think they'd last beyond that.
Right.
You know, because a fighter at level 16 would still kill a magic
Right,
user.
particularly when you're, as an elf, still limited as a magic user to 6th level.
Yeah.
And then as a fighter, I think they bumped it slightly to, so it was 8th level when
Yeah.
they came out to here versus 6th, and then fighter went from 4 to 6.
Yeah.
So they got a slight bump, but ultimately,
Not much.
as an elf, you had a lot of restrictions.
Now on page 10, it explained the magic users can now advance to 36th level with spell research encouraged.
Right. Because they're only going to give you so many.
So yeah.
And then beyond that, you come up with...
Upon reaching 11th level, the magic user can build a tower, just like when 9th level for a fighter, they build place. They can build a tower gaining 1 to 6 apprentices of levels 1 to 3. Elves can build a stronghold at level 9, but it must be constructed deep in the forest and not disturb the natural beauty of the area. Elves have 1d6 per level hit points. Elves. So as magic users, we were always elves as a magic user because they got
Sure.
1d6, and so there was just no reason not to.
Unless
It's like,
you-
why be a human?
Right.
You know, but the human aspect was I want to be a 100th level wizard someday.
Sure. And so if you started at a higher level, which was very uncommon in this generation, it might be, you'll go ahead and take the D4 because you've got the power to survive a little bit. But yeah, starting early on, if you, as an elf, get a D6, regardless of your class,
Yeah.
that's definitely a bonus.
Even though it limited and stopped you, sometimes just being able to survive the first
Right.
6 months of campaigning
hmm
was important enough to be an elf. On page 40, there is also this information. I believe the first mention of the Magic Users Guild. I think this is the first mention anywhere where all magic users are trained.
Okay,
So in
yeah.
the expert rules, they start with guilds, and from here it kind of blows up with everybody else. I've got one too. So,
Yeah, the
I've got a guild.
thieves and
My
all,
guild's
yeah.
better than your guild. So, yeah, it started out there in the expert rules.
So, particularly with strongholds, that was a major focus in these earlier editions, and so always really cool to be able to develop that wealth, get a character to that level, and begin to develop, your wizard's tower in this case. What's in the basement? Don't ask.
Which basement?
I gotta go hire another apprentice because the potion room exploded. Some of these things would happen, but we'll also see that with wizards, they're not talking about up to 200 followers like a paladin. And the paladin was that was a low number. Fighters could get 500 or more based on charisma modifiers and station, a lot of
Clerics
different
and
things.
stuff like that. Yeah, they could do stuff.
So to get 3 apprentices was still pretty limited.
One die 6 apprentices of level 1 to 3.
Right, so up to 6, and then not being able to cast anything higher than a 2nd level spell. But when you need somebody
a whole
to go
group, a magic user, a teacher, a scholar, with 6 3rd level magic users going out on their own adventure is still not recommended.
No, don't do it. Yeah.
Don't do it.
So like before you leave the adventure, you need to have the estate planning elf come over, him and his goblin bookie, and they're gonna
You got a directive? So,
But-
anything you want to add about the extra rules before we go on to companion? Oh, great,
Yeah.
Troy.
Expert just added a lot to spells, if I remember right. So we got a lot of access because we're dealing with 4 to 14th levels.
Yeah, and like I say, some of the reversibles. I mean, you can't throw a reverse fireball. I mean, what is that?
Ice bolt.
That's a black hole.
Or suck, So
So in this one, that carries forward what they do in the red box, where they started having pages for the new DM.
Oh yes.
And they have this one has a small adventure in it that takes place in and around a village. But they have maps. They have the wandering monsters. They talk about weather, the ship, different types of waterborne encounters, and all of this. Your different monsters are going to be encountered during the adventure.
now I've scuba dived and I've seen what's down there, so I'm not a big fan of water adventures.
No,
Never have.
no, I don't think I would be either. But let's see, where
All your verbal components go right out the window.
They do. They do.
I cast blue.
And it works.
It has several pages in the DM section that talk about how to make a campaign, how to make an adventure, all the side things that go on behind the screen to build something, things that we talk about in our classes. In the red book they started having, and the blue book they carry that forward.
Now,
have a
Yeah,
lot
the red
more
book was
stuff.
creating dungeons. They had creating dungeons in here.
This
One starts with creating campaigns.
to that point, though, I just remembered the red book starts actually getting into the marching order. They formalize
Yes.
They do.
teaching the marching order
Thank you.
because that was something that you had to learn as you went in the white box.
And died.
And died. Yeah.
It took a few deaths, but you caught on.
So now that it's been established through play broadly in the community in the white box, we see it brought into the DM section here in the red. Definitely want to protect your squishy wizards.
And as referees, we learned how to attack from behind and things coming through a wall or driving from the ceiling on
Trap.
the guy in the middle.
Yeah.
Trap
So,
hits you no matter where you're at.
Yeah.
but I'm the one that set off the trap. Yeah, but the poison arrow goes and hits that guy.
Yeah, it missed you and missed him and hit him.
Yeah, it's got to go somewhere.
Yeah, it does.
Right into the wizard.
Yeah, don't hide your wizard behind the dwarf. That's all I'm saying.
Or the gnome. No, wait, gnomes aren't around yet. The companion rules. Those are intended to work with the previous boxes, which is why it said companion right there on it. With the box sets, their charts, their tables, descriptions, and items weren't duplicated but were expressed as available in the basic and expert sets. So that's one thing I liked about that one is
all the boxes
put
build
these
on
together.
top of what they
Yeah,
did
that was really nice.
Yeah.
Instead of do away with that, we have a whole new system for you.
No,
You know.
it's build and build and build and build.
That was
Yeah.
in this era, as we've gone through and done the through the ages. This era was really nice. We see it all the way through second, where we get a progressive building. Nothing's really taken away. There's no detractions, and there weren't any major revisions because there weren't any major issues with the game system. It was
People
really
liked it.
Yeah, it was really well put together. You had a lot of flexibility, and we also had house rules.
That's
So-
the big term there was the flexibility, and that's what people liked with the flexibility and the imagination. And this you could put more imagination into it. Where I've stated before with fighter that and cleric and so on that AD&D 1 was where I first was introduced to the term railroading. So which AD&D was railroading the character
It
in a lot of ways.
it had a lot more defined progression, but when you get into multi-classing and things like that,
Yeah.
it's still quite a lot more free than certain other editions or certain rule sets. But because we had house rules also, there were a lot of really great expansions. Troy did stuff with armor and hit points. Gwydion, you were talking a little bit earlier about spell points for spellcasters.
Yeah. Okay. In our original D&D,
Not the whole.
yeah,
Well,
yeah, yeah.
right,
No,
but-
in the original
but it's-
D&D, we used spell points because it was an option. Spell points were an option.
Yeah.
They discussed so when it came out with magazines and some of the fanzines that were out there. We calculated intelligence for the magic user, wisdom for the cleric, times your level plus your hit points. Because when you ran out of spell points, you actually used your life.
Yeah.
Troy had a different setup, which you'll get to here in a sec. You got your first 6th level spell at 12th level. So a 12th level magic user with an 18 intelligence and max hit points, which never happened,
So
would be 216 plus 48 or 264 spell points. Now, what do we do with those? Well, a first level spell costs you 2 and 2 spell points, and every level after that we would square. So 2nd level was 4, 9th level spell was 81 spell points to use to cast it. We found out that was still way too many, so you could cast 7 6th level spells when you got your first 6th level spell. You could cast it 7
So by the
times.
time you're 12th level, finally get access.
To a 6th level,
Yeah.
you can cast 7 of them. So we learned very quickly at the second campaign.
Right.
We actually let it go for 1, and it was hilarious. And we were just, okay, we're just going to roll 10th level monsters and up.
How many times did they try to backstab your?
Yeah, was this one spellcaster, or was this a 10th level wizard
One.
with his 3 apprentices?
No, just one dude. Just one
Because-
dude.
Quick math tells me that's like 600 spell points walking through the dungeon.
Yes, it was.
Destruction.
Yes.
Destruction.
So we quartered the spell points from that calculation, which meant a 12th level wizard could cast 1 6th level spell, which is right in line with what the books wanted. But it took us one very funny Monty Hall campaign
Oh,
to
man.
figure that out. And you that don't know who Monty Hall is, look it up.
Oh, absolutely.
Which just dated me, but go ahead. So you had a better system.
I thought you had to count the rings for that.
Yeah.
We'll cut them in half later.
Cut them in half.
So
So, one of the things that frustrated me as a player and as a DM, more as a player,
right.
my magic user could cast my 1 spell, and basically I'm dragging
Well, you had
body
your,
bags or bags of loot.
But I have this dagger.
yeah, my T-shirt and my dagger and my no spells.
That's right.
Right. So you wound up carrying stuff for the rest of the dungeon because you couldn't do
Yeah.
anything else constructive.
Right.
So
With a 12 string.
You had 12? Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
this led to trying to find a way to develop spell points. And the spell point system that I use, or that I made, my players use, and they like it for the most part. Intelligence, 2 points per level, and your constitution. No,
Hit points.
you know, I'm gonna have to dig out my paper because all this stuff has muddled my brain so much I can't remember how to even
It's odd,
add.
but ultimately, you ended up with a
You had 3 different types of spells that would
Yes.
take up 3 different
Yes.
types
Levels
of
of
spell
costs.
points.
So,
yeah.
That was
if-
the cool thing I thought of.
If you look through the spells, you have to divide them by function. One was a simple work spell, like create food and water, that kind of thing.
right prestidigitation.
Light, light's
Yeah.
a work spell, performs a simple function. So it was 1 point times its level. So it's a first level spell, it's 1 point. The other was a work or a healing spell. So the level of the spell times 2. So cure light wounds being first level is 2 points.
Right, and so again, he applied this not only to arcane casters but divine casters.
Clerics and druids. Offensive and defensive. So lightning bolt, fireball, shield.
Yeah,
Yep.
he
all
often
those
overlooked
are-
shield.
Right.
Shield is essential.
Those are offensive and defensive spells.
Yeah.
Were 3 times their level. So fireball was 9 points.
Right.
Lightning bolt was 9 points. Shield was 3 because it's first level.
Mhm.
Then there were specials such as wish and power words. or
Right.
4 times their level.
Polymorphs. Yeah.
So typically, a first level magic user would wind up around 25 spell points. The interesting things that this my spell point system allowed was once you cast that spell, you can cast it again and again and again
Because it's
So you-
memorized.
Points.
Right.
And that's what I like about
Yeah.
ours is you didn't just have the one and then you were stuck doing
Right.
whatever.
And we see
Come
something.
here, read this.
Well, we see this similarly, and it was a frustration of mine too, with the introduction of cantrips later on. But now,
Yes.
as we see it in 5th edition, where we've got certain ability or certain spells like Firebolt. Now I can cast Firebolt and remain in combat. It's not my big hits, but I can remain in combat and be effective for the party as a magic user. And so, you know, as the game system went on, these sort of limitations were addressed without becoming game breaking.
Speaking of limitations, I was discussing with Troy earlier is a magic user and saving throws. Being a magic user and, you know, being tuned to magic and possibly part of magic in itself, we had the worst saving
Oh
throw
yeah,
matrix
save versus lightning
of
bolt.
everything. We should have been the best at this, being part of magic. I think saving throw versus stone or paralyzation, we were like 1 pip better than everybody else. On
Yeah.
everything else, we were the worst. And I'm like,
This is why you play a dwarf.
wait a minute. Yes.
You don't
Wait
have
a
a dwarf
minute,
magic
why?
user then.
Yeah.
Well, but I didn't have to worry about paralyzation either,
Yeah.
so that's whatever.
Elves didn't have to worry about paralysis.
kinda
They were
think-
free from
I
ghouls.
kind of think that's
Yeah.
why you learn magic, because you got tired of getting your ass handed to you by magic.
Shield.
So I'm going to learn it. I'm going to learn it to protect myself from
Yeah.
it. Yeah, exactly.
I'm sorry, guys. This isn't for you. I mean, I appreciate you bringing me in the party, but I'm going to protect myself and look for stuff.
Cast haste on myself.
That's right.
Yeah.
I don't think there's much else in there before we
Well,
get
as
to the
far as
companion rules.
Companion, no, we
Yeah,
but we
Coming
also
up to
had
these.
That's another box.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Companion was the teal box that you see here behind Troy. I thought we had a black book set.
It's
That's
Oh.
expert.
Okay.
that's expert.
Let's see the companion rules. Yeah, that's where we're still working with.
There's not much change, but there is a little more that they add.
Spells and saving throws were fleshed out to level 25.
Yeah.
As far as actual charts that showed the progression.
They made a distinction for gender on page 19, expressing that magic users 15th to 25th level are called a wizard if male, a maga or mega if female, which magus,
Sure.
came out later. Mega. There.
So just gendered language.
That's
which
on
is
page
fair.
19. It states wizards megas are the reason dungeons exist. In this system, that's why dungeons exist, because the magic user builds a tower with or without permission from the local ruler. They then begin to build a dungeon under or near the tower. Once 1 or more levels are complete and left open, monsters will wander in and begin to build their lairs. Soon after, adventurers will come to seek their fortunes. Once a month or more, a magic user will secretly visit the dungeon, gathering any magical items or treasure that remains, or at least glean from what is there so as not to strip the monsters of their hoard or scare them away.
Mhm.
A wandering wizard known as a magus, who visits other lands helping local magic users with research, completing the task in half the time with double the chance of success on anything they do. They have a chance to find treasure maps, hear rare rumors of powerful magic items. They can also attract powerful fighters and clerics to adventure with them for a price.
Well, we see the concept here of
Yeah.
the wizard dungeon expanded in the classic. Man, I reprinted it for 5th edition. I just had it. Astarak's tomb. It was the Tomb of Annihilation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Astarak, a powerful lich in this tomb, multiple levels, insanity for traps, monsters, all sorts of stuff. But it existed because wizards.
Yeah.
Was essentially, when you get into the lore of it, because wizards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All of them.
Maximum damage dice for any spell is now set at a firm 20 dice in the companion set. So much for my 100th level fireball. 7th through 9th level spells are added with Gate, Maze, Meteor Swarm, Power Word Kill being at the top of the line. I mean, Meteor Swarm, if you were outside, was just massive.
Oh, yeah.
But we were always in dungeons, so I'm like, I'm not taking that. And Book 2, Royal Dominions are set forth with titled rulers and combat between them. So
Right.
now we have reasons for tabletop miniatures wars. And one of the reasons Magic users don't want a title, because once you are a titled ruler, there's going to be conflicts.
Well, sure, the Baron is pissed off at the Duke, and then they need some people to go blow some stuff up, and
Yeah.
you just want to sit there and do some research.
Battle ratings of a dominion of a domain can be swayed by having up to 100% of your forces equipped with magical abilities, 30% or more of your forces able to cast spells, up to 20% of your forces being able to fly. So you had these
yeah.
great advantages in these big tabletop miniature wars, which, again, we highly encourage. You take it from these little parties and stuff and learn to do these big miniature battles, because they're a blast, especially with your individuals. And most important in this edition, in the companion set, according to Troy the Planescape guy, is the multiverse introduction.
Yeah.
Right here. Nothing works as well as it does on the prime material plane.
That is absolutely correct.
Right. And we get, some of your basic stuff, but we're like the negative material, prime material, the astral planes, those sorts of concepts, broad strokes are introduced.
I was showing Mr. Producer one of the books from Planescape earlier, and because he's putting together a campaign that has Tiflings in it. And I said, the 5th edition Tifling is just kind of watered down. Let me show you something. I pulled out one of the Planescape books of Tifling, and there's a whole page chart in there. If you're from the prime material plane, here's how your stuff works on other planes.
Right.
And there's like several columns that are just blacked out.
So-
Doesn't work.
Yeah.
Gwydion, I'm on the prime material or the elemental plane of fire.
Mhm.
I want to cast Create Water.
Can't do it.
It's
like steam. Yeah, it's just not happening. It's just, it's going to evaporate the second you toss it out.
yeah, spell papers redacted. I
You don't
cast
have a spell.
redacted. Wait, redacted.
Totally.
So, yeah, some really interesting stuff that starts to get introduced here, because what we got into just after that.
Immortality is introduced in the companion set. You can pursue immortality. That doesn't mean you're going to make it.
And then finally we get the full set of rules for the immortals.
Yeah. Damage to magic items is introduced in the companion set.
Oh, great, yes.
You bastards.
No.
So it's
But so we get Barbarian later, and but Barbarian got extra bonus points for destroying magic
He
items.
gets the experience points of that item. So we have a wand of whatever.
yeah.
He got the experience points for breaking it.
And so this is where we see the introduction of those rules.
That something's going to happen when you break
Oh
it.
well, that's for later. But the introduction. So why do I have to take my ring to Mount Doom? Why? So,
I just gave it to a barbarian.
It's in the script. Don't make me break the walls. So
It is in the script.
Yeah.
Why did they?
Yeah. Well, so,
I don't know.
why wouldn't they give it to Fozzie Bear? Because no one can waka into Mordor.
Oh my god.
It was, and that's my time.
Yeah.
So I hear there's chocolate chip cookies back here.
You're just mad that one was better than yours.
Yeah, I am. Let's see. Maximum hit points. That goes to hit armor class 0, which we're not going to get into. And saving throws are updated on page 22 to 25 for the magic user, which is in line with previous box editions. Merely expanded to level 36 for the human magic user, and 10th for the elf.
Yeah, they finally get to make. They go from 8 to 10. So
Yes.
I still think this hilarious. Elves and dwarves that live longer than humans can only go so far.
And,
6 or 8
again,
level.
that was Gygax's.
Yeah.
His plan was make humans valuable, make them
because
worth
we touched
running,
on that
make them,
as we explored Fighter, where
yeah.
the dwarf could expand beyond their limitations with
yeah.
additional assistance from human fighters.
Yes. As a matter of
Similar
fact,
to-
everybody in there could
Yeah.
expand further with the addition of human.
Yeah, had to be
Training
taught by humans.
Yeah.
Oh, how
I got
degrading
this,
could
so.
that be?
It very. It was
I'm an elf. I lived
thematically.
2,000 years.
Yeah.
What could this human possibly teach me about shooting a bow?
I don't know.
I
But
don't know.
it's thematically, I
this
think.
has training wheels. Try
Oh,
it.
jeez. Thematically,
Yeah,
it is an
this
odd
is-
choice,
this is
but I
called an
think
overdraw.
game system wise, it was,
Yeah.
because there were a lot of advantages to Elf.
Yes.
Fey ancestry with a resistance to sleep or immunity to sleep, dark vision, magical resistances were
Cool.
better.
School paralyzation didn't work.
Yeah,
on.
the
they're prettier.
dwarf, yes.
And pretty.
But the dwarf had also
Oh,
dark
I'm still-
vision, all the stone slopes,
Yeah.
underground traversal,
Yeah.
the things that were important for when you're in a dungeon,
Mhm.
and better saving throws against
Yeah.
magic and stuff.
Much
So,
better saving throws.
Much better.
there was a lot of advantage to being a dwarf or an elf.
Pretty much +4 to any
Yeah,
saving throw.
dwarves were four
Yeah.
Levels
four
higher.
levels higher.
Yeah.
So sometimes it was a lot more than just 4 pips.
Yeah.
It was 4 levels higher
Right.
where their saving throws started on the charts.
But-
So, a 10th level would be 14th as far as on the chart.
Right.
And that was huge.
And yeah, so it's mechanically I can see where they did it. Thematically, an odd choice. But that's also the other thing we haven't talked too much about was the multi-class elf was set up really well for fighter or magic user.
Yeah.
But
You could
as
be
a
magic
straight,
user
but as
in
a
one campaign and a fighter in the next. He couldn't do it both at the same time, but you could be an elf magic
Yeah.
user in this campaign and an elf fighter in the next campaign and go back.
but still were not
Yeah.
did not have the magical potential of a human straight wizard.
Yep.
And straight wizard is just that's the only way to get access to 9th level spells,
The
power word kill,
restriction
and those
on
sorts
that
of
guy.
things.
He's a fighter magic user elf. When he's a magic user and he's going out to the dungeon, he cannot wear armor.
No.
He
Right.
cannot swing a sword.
Nope.
He can't shoot a bow. He has to do everything as a magic user.
Right.
Yep.
And so even
when
those
he's a fighter,
advantages,
He
can't
can put
cast
that armor
spell.
back on,
Yeah.
and he
But he can't
pick up
cast
the sword.
spells.
Can't cast spells. Yeah.
yeah. So some
Umans
interesting
are bad.
Right.
Umans are
And we
bad.
didn't
First edition, baby.
right, we didn't see those restrictions relax until the next edition.
Yeah.
So it was I think basically be a human fighter unless you need some hit points, be an elf wizard.
funny.
Some of those
No, just make sure as a magic user you have a fighter with you.
yeah.
That's the whole bottom line, and a cleric. Although
Yeah.
they did mention online, I saw a Facebook post where it said proving for 7 years or something along those lines that party does not need a cleric, and they showed the original D&D cartoon cast. So okay, that's it for the companion. We hit on to the black box, the master.
So you brought it up. In that cartoon,
Yeah.
the dungeon master sent a first level party against Tiamat.
Yeah.
And without a cleric.
because that's old school dungeon master.
I wouldn't have.
Yeah, but they had a unicorn, right?
Yeah, they had
Yeah.
a unicorn,
Yeah.
so
Would have been a great cartoon without the unicorn. In the Master Rules, the basic set gave us levels 1 to 3. Expert gave us 4 to 14. Companion gave us 15 to 25. The Master set takes us beyond level 26 as far as fleshing out.
Yeah, and this is for most. I think it was all the classes got the flesh.
Yeah.
We got for wizard, we're going to see expanded spell lists. Those charts are going to go to those levels for saving throws and other different things that are going to be core to the character at that point.
Yeah,
you're not gonna have to, like,
flesh it out to
calculate-
level 36. You don't have to calculate anymore, which in the original 3 books was an absolute nightmare. Everything, you had to be great at math. Your English had to be
Old.
I love you so much. It's
Ye old dragons.
you can you can love a person and not like them. Do you know that? Seen that? So anyway, that's that was some of the great stuff about it.
Right. So into the third. Now the one that we saw just a little bit.
Elf remained maxing at 10th level.
Oh, no else for me.
Yeah, even in the Master Rules, elves, even though magic users, they were fleshed out to 36 for humans anyway. Elves, 10th. Sorry.
Just done.
Yeah, have a human. Immortal interactions and anti-magic effects are explained on page 2 of the Dungeon Master Guide. Like, you're gonna use these.
Well, by
there
the
it
time
is.
you have a 36 level character,
Yeah.
you've stopped worrying about the goblins and the orc hordes, and now you're trying to keep the multiverse from being ripped apart, planes folded into other planes by dark gods.
Yeah.
You know, those sorts of things are what you're dealing with on the day-to-day by the time you're using
Yeah.
these rules.
Yeah,
by
it
the
states
time
right in there that your rules exist to balance the play between the planes of existence and encounters with immortals.
Yeah, you're definitely
Right.
earning your paycheck at that point.
So yeah, you are earning your paycheck.
What
Right.
I love about what you guys are talking about in Planescape, they went ahead and just made a whole box set dedicated to it. It's called the Blood War.
Right.
Mhm.
It touches all 54 planes of existence in some shape or fashion. But what you're talking about right there is the early description of the Blood War.
Right.
Yeah.
Because you may be dealing with deities directly, but a lot of times they're avatars.
No,
You know, so there's a lot that goes into it.
What do you
and-
think happens when a cleric goes to church and prays? His deity shows up and says, "Hey, I need you to put together an army and go smite these guys."
Well, by the time you're at level 36, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, another cleric, the deity shows up and goes, I know these guys, they're going to be coming down. So you
Yeah.
need to be ready for this. So I'm going to give you a little information, a little
We'll make
inside
you an offer
information.
you can't refuse.
That's right. You're not going to be able to refuse it because I'm like your deity. and everything.
I'm like your dad, but also a deity. Like, more like a godfather, if you will.
So yeah.
Shut up.
No, I like him. You
Yeah,
go
pretty-
ahead,
pretty funny.
Cletus. You go
So-
ahead.
But that set the stage. We're getting into higher level magic items. We're dealing with
Mhm.
artifacts, things created by deities.
Artifacts and relics, baby.
Yeah.
Page 3. Now we're not even,
Yeah, we're
into
look at the third page of the book.
This is the third page of the book.
Where is that
It
page?
explains
These are the black ones.
creating. It explains creating a high level character, so you don't have to play for months, to gain those high levels. They teach you, or it tells you how to create a high level. So page 5 expresses some notes on retiring a character. An option for retiring is becoming a ruler, which is on page 6 and 7, gaining money and experience through rulership. Although one of our GM friends, Lance, would rather make them the next BBEG. So it's like don't retire them. They have all their stuff.
They have all their
They've
stuff.
got money.
Give me your
Just-
character sheet. You're right,
Yeah.
bad guy on top of it.
That's right. That's
Where's our
right.
next game?
But he's an evil GM, but with great ideas. So
I
thanks,
love it.
Lance. So
He's not trying to kill the whole.
yeah. It
He's
just
just
happens.
succeeding really well.
This is also a little more fleshed out where you can try to become an immortal. Pages 11 through 15 explains this process, and we're not going to get into it here. So you can pick that up, or you can look at it online, pick up the PDF, buy the PDF online, and look it up. Pages 11 through 15. Artifacts are introduced on page 45 to 64. These didn't get a bit out of hand when we first started including them in our games, did they?
Oh,
Well,
no.
here, so
I mean, they were
really, later we ended up with the Rod of Seven Parts
box.
campaign box.
Campaign box.
But
It's for
this,
one artifact.
yeah. So
It's a
Troy,
rod. It's in 7 pieces.
yeah.
Yeah.
You gotta
So-
find them all.
Having done this a little bit, Troy, and as a
Mm-hmm.
component to the larger subset of your campaign, what happens when players start to get a hold of or mess around with artifacts?
Well, artifacts all have a function, but they always have side effects.
Mhm.
And the side effects are just as potentially deadly as their effects.
Mhm.
And if you're not ready for them, now, Gwydion earlier was talking about weapons in the white box set having an intelligence and an ego.
Right.
That basically means it's a person's persona in the weapon. When we advance, by the time we get to first level, that's no longer the case. Intelligent weapons are a rarity.
Yeah.
However, all artifacts and relics have an ego, not necessarily an intelligence,
Sure.
but they want to be used by somebody who's going to use them.
Right. They have a purpose and they want to express it.
And almost all artifacts and relics are evil. It's in their primary function.
Because of they're like the Rod of Seven Parts. One part is like insanity for lightning bolt,
Oh,
and some other things. But
Yeah, trade outs.
but they don't necessarily have morality as we understand it, but they're
No.
considered evil because when you're a rod of lightning bolt that wants to be used, you lightning bolt stuff.
Yeah.
That's not necessarily what you want.
And the rod of 7 parts is you put the 7 pieces together.
Yeah.
Part 1 and 2 each have individual items that they can do.
Yeah.
When you put them together, now they have more that they can do.
Sure.
Yeah.
And that's both their primary function as well as to the user.
Right. And then, but so
So there's always synergy. There, this, you know,
right.
some of the parts is greater.
Oh
Sure.
yeah.
Or the-
So and that's just the rod,
parts.
but you'd see stuff like Mjolnir
Mhm.
or
Oh, here you go.
Excalibur.
Here's
you
one.
know,
Here's
different.
one I know they heard of. The hand and eye of Vecna.
Right. This well, as that's been researched, but yeah, that's those would be
And
things
just
that your players in this level
Yeah.
would start to come across, actively work against,
Yeah.
or be thwarted by.
Yeah.
just a safety tip for those of you out there who are looking for the hand and eye of Vecna. There is no head of Vecna. It
Yeah.
does not exist as a magic item. You have a hand, you have an eye. That's it.
Yeah, that's it.
Not a head. There's a story behind that. Anyway, moving on. So yes, you can become immortal, and you have to patron to a deity and go on long
Right.
quests, raise an army, take over a country, and there's a number of
And
things.
so these books began to outline that process, and there was a lot of interest about it. And so what we actually ended up with was the gold box, the Immortal Rules set, a 2-book,
Like
2 or 3
these.
books, and that tells you how to take your 36 level character and convert them into a first level 1d4 wizard.
That would
Start all over again.
No, so, but you'll become a
become-
first level immortal
After
character.
you go through the process where you take your experience points, everything you own translates into gold piece value. Your house, the underwear you wear, everything you own, every sword, everything.
Right.
And you have to have a certain amount of points. If you have the points, then and if you completed the quests that your deity says so, and they're happy with everything, they'll make you a first level immortal character.
No, you have to petition.
You have
Well,
to petition.
or because-
It's
Well,
long
there is a bit of there's a whole he's
There's
getting
all
over it.
new. There's not all new game mechanics
Yes.
in
Yeah.
this. The DM guide details it.
Yes.
Much of the information describes the astral and outer planes along with new
Yeah. So
creatures.
you're hoping to become
Yeah.
a celestial, which
Yes.
is basically an angel for your god, your deity.
Right.
So you go out and fight demons all day instead of other first level magic users. Now you're fighting demons and devils on different
But-
planes.
now your race is still the same as
Yeah.
when you were mortal, and
Right.
your id, ego, and super
you
ego
do have some
pretty
neat
much are still
abilities
there.
though.
Yeah,
You can fly. You can see everything.
Well,
You're-
there was the potential for these things.
Yeah,
Which is
yeah, the
because
kinda cool.
potential.
your
Yeah.
rank is now determined by the amount of power you
Yeah.
acquire. So here's the whole reason for, as an immortal, why am I here? Well,
particularly as an immortal wizard.
you want to acquire power.
So, but
yeah, beginning as an initiate and enter into the next rank and so on.
so but you know, particularly when you're dealing with magic, the cosmos, the multiverse, and you get into the other planes of existence as a wizard, this is 100% your bag.
Oh yeah.
You know, so
See that red folder right there?
this actually.
No. Over there by the great. Yeah, that. There we go. I'll show you a first level immortal character. It's kind
Now,
of
magic users start with the most power points. Cleric immortals start with the least.
Oh, interesting.
Also, your alignment can change without penalty. Whereas in the old game, if something caused your alignment to change, or you play your character so terribly
Right.
or so wrong that the referee changed your alignment, there were consequences, and it was usually divine retribution.
But in this case, we're talking
consequences.
about a shift based on who your patron is, right?
Yeah,
So if you start as lawful good, but your patron's neutral good,
yeah.
you'll shift.
Or
in-
neutral chaotic. I mean, you could shift over to that.
Right.
No penalty. No penalty whatsoever.
But it was reflective
actually,
of the
it was
choices.
Neutral, lawful, neutral, and chaotic were still there. I don't think we had the 9 levels yet. Did we have the 9 levels in this yet? That was only AD&D, wasn't it?
I think they came in late in these.
Yeah,
We've covered
the-
it like a million times at this point.
the
Like,
ninth
they
level,
forget.
the ninth level spells. Yeah, they were
No,
in the.
he
No,
means
no,
the
the-
good and evil as well as lawful.
Oh
and chaotic.
yes. So they're in the they're
Yeah.
in the blue book.
They
Okay, the
did.
blue book. So,
Okay,
okay.
all right.
Yeah, I thought they'd come in here.
My
at this point.
bad. My
But
bad.
Yeah, so a wizard to reach level 36 and then convert into an immortal level
And then
had
have-
the greatest level of power points to then craft your ability to manipulate the universe.
Yeah, and then you went into training. If you were accepted and you did
Yeah.
everything you were supposed to do and lived, then you went into training. So by the end of your training, your AC when you started training was 0, which in THAC0
Right, which was pretty good. You're
pretty good. And you had 15 hit dice, and you started with 75 hit points.
right. So,
A magic user with 75 hit points, AC of 0?
but at the same, well, yeah, because it would be like having 75 hit points and a 20 if you got for you guys in 5th edition.
By
So
the
pretty
end
good.
of your training, you were at 20 hit dice and 100 hit points. So that was the end of your training when you started as an immortal, and as a magic user, again, you had the most power points.
As a
So
creature
finally, a
at
magic
this,
user we can get behind.
but like, as a creature of this level, you're now no longer affected by non-magical weapons. You have to be affected by magic of a certain level to even have it be a problem for you. So by the time you've managed to keep your wizard alive long enough to make this to this high level and then make the transition, there's quite a lot going for you. But again, you're not dealing with your regular orcs and goblins. You're not dealing with Groomsh himself and those sorts of orcs and goblins.
Now, if at any time while you're an immortal, you assume your mortal form, it's like, I have got to tell Mom I'm okay.
Right.
And you assume your mortal form, you are back to all your mortal aspects, your hit points, all of the other issues, any age, any disease, anything. When you go back to being mortal.
Right.
It's not like you can play that game back and forth.
Well,
Well,
if
you
you,
can,
if you
but
change,
you can.
if
But
you assume the form correct, or typically what's done is some people try to say, well, that means I'm reborn and I'm back to being a gentle or whatever. No,
Yeah.
that to strip away your immortalhood and everything has to be done by your deity again. And they can strip you and make you back to first level magic user.
1d4.
But you project to your friends and your family or whoever is an image that's it's residual memory of yourself. So it's not a true.
Sure.
It's not really you.
Well,
But if you could, but you don't want to do that.
yeah.
Sure. So, again,
I can't find my mortal sheet.
You
So-
can also make yourself incorporeal as an immortal.
incorporeal.
Incorporeal. Yeah. No, you
he can say that one,
you
but he can't
be
say the other one.
incorporeal.
Make yourself a
An immortal cannot use spells or create magical effects of any sort in this form, but is likewise immune to all magic. So if you're going to go
Just a
someplace,
beam of light.
yeah,
Yeah.
and you know that they're going to start casting at you, you can just turn yourself into this and move on.
Right.
Cool. So that's Wizard
Yeah.
from 1d4 being killed
Yeah.
by dire rats to potentially becoming a deity of their own.
Well, they're not a deity.
No,
Because-
potentially they could move from there. There's other
There's a track
Things.
you can move there.
Yeah.
To be a deity, you have to be worshipped.
sure.
So there's things you can do.
But-
Now, doing that is frowned upon by other deities.
Right.
Yes.
But the rules are there was kind of an interesting part of that expansion.
Mhm.
Particularly though,
Yeah.
I think Magic User is a very cool class to play at that level.
Oh yeah.
You're like, I'm traveling to planes of existence. We've
Yeah.
got astral dreadnoughts and
Oh, just
all the crazy stuff. And
We didn't talk at all about the familiars and finding familiars and the
Oh.
differences with the familiars, and we'll do that later, or we'll do it as a sidebar, because
Yeah.
there's so many different aspects of a familiar and what they did for the
What you could-
magic user
yeah,
and so on, and
can
what
you
could happen.
cast or could you
Yeah,
not?
and
I mean,
from
so much.
ODD all the way to
and if
5e.
your familiar gets killed.
Yeah,
Right, that I remember that
All
in the earlier
sorts of
edition.
different
The snapback damage could murder.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
That's not
So
good.
we're going to cover familiars in another video sometime, and that'll be a short one that you can do over coffee and donuts.
So I think we've talked about the basic set here of Wizards. Is there anything else we wanted to double check?
I think we're good.
These stages of the game, the red and blue,
Yeah.
the 5 boxes where it really started to grow up. They were organizing the information, so it was easier for players and DMs to put together characters, to put together games, and make it much more fun for everybody.
Yeah.
As the game really started to grab and take hold and start running, And we'll see that when we get the first edition, especially second edition, how on top of these books, on top of these box sets, that just keep stacking more and more stuff. They don't really change. They don't take anything away. They just keep stacking more stuff.
The items that came out gave us fuel for our imagination. Like the Rod of Seven Parts, when that first came out, it's like, well, I'm going to scatter them, and I'm going to make up an adventure for this, and I'm going to assign powers to it, and so on. And that was completely A-OK.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And when it came to the artifacts themselves that came out, I mean, you're looking at, I seek the Holy Grail. We already have one.
We already have one.
Yeah.
So, you've got things along those lines that now give you a higher grade of thing to go after, or things people can find and not be able to use.
Yes.
Certainly. So,
Have a lot of those out.
A lot of interesting stuff. But we're going to go ahead and wrap this one up so that we can get into first edition Advanced Dungeons and Dragons.
Advanced.
Yes, for the special kids. So our first hardback printing, the game that Troy and I played a lot of. So if you have any questions, again, be sure to ask. We're here to answer them for you live. We can crack open any of these books. Like, share, subscribe, comment, make funny faces at the screen. Wherever you find this video, we'd be glad for your feedback. I'm Jester Borris with I Want to Be a GM.
Troy, the Planescape guy.
Gwydion the Long-Winded.
And we will see you in just a few short minutes.
Woohoo!